Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Force StarCraft 2 Strategy, your #1 location for step-by-step strategy and tutorial videos. Today we're going to be taking a look at a Terran strategy. This is going to be a Terran versus Protoss strategy, and what we're going to be looking at specifically is the Marine Banshee build. Basically massing up Marines, getting out Banshees as quickly as possible, and then pushing out on your Protoss opponent. So again, this is a Terran versus Protoss strategy. The Terran player we're looking at today is Morrow, and our Protoss opponent is going to be White Raw. So we're going to go ahead and move straight into Morrow Vision. Now before we get into things, and before things get too complex and intense, I'm going to just go ahead and explain generally the strategy that we're looking at. Now, this is a slight deviation from what I had posted just the other day, either yesterday or the day before, I'm not sure. All the days are kind of melding together at this point. But the build that I posted prior was a Marine, Banshee, and Raven build, and now this, of course, is that Marine Banshee build. So we are sans Raven, we are lacking a Raven in layman's term. Now this is kind of more of a stylistic choice. Basically what we're deciding to do in not getting that Raven is we're deciding to get more offensive units earlier, so we're opting to get another Banshee or two instead of getting a Raven. And again, this is kind of a stylistic choice. It's also going to be dependent on what your opponent's doing. I mean, I would say if your Protoss opponent is getting nothing but Stalkers, if all you see when you scout him is Stalkers, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and get that Raven, because that point defense drone obviously is very effective versus the Stalker. It absorbs all those Stalker shots and basically saves the lives of your Marines. So yeah, again, this is just a slight deviation. We are neglecting to get that Raven and instead getting some more Banshees. And another thing I do want to say is in this particular replay, again, what we're trying to do is get Marines into Banshees. But in this particular replay, we do see that our Protoss opponent has a Starport, or a Stargate rather. We do see that he has a Stargate, and that kind of tells us that we're likely to be seeing Void Rays. Now once we see that, once we get that scouting information, instead of going straight to the Raven, like we ultimately, instead of going straight to the Banshee like we are trying to do, like we want to do, we are instead going to get some Vikings to fend off that Void Ray attack and to deal with it handedly and then move into the Banshees. So again, this is going to be we're going to be taking a good look at how to slightly change the strategy that you're going for based on what your opponent is doing, and then move into what you initially planned on doing in the first place. So we're going to take a look at the build order here. We start off with that 10 supply depot, followed that up with the 12 barracks, and then once our barracks was done building, we of course got that Orbital Command at 16. Also at that point is when we started building both our refineries. We started building those simultaneously, and we're going to saturate those right away. As soon as we get our first 100 gas, that is when we are going to go ahead. As soon as we get our first 100 gas, that is when we are going to go ahead and start building our factory. Now, as you can see here, our Protoss opponent is pushing up with some Zealots, so we are going to try to micro our Marines away, try to save their lives, and try to take out the Zealots. I do want to make a quick note about this build as well. Going for this particular build, you are very susceptible to early game Stalker pushes, and the way you're going to want to defend against that is by getting in this bunker at the front of your base. Basically, if Stalkers move up into your base, 2 or 3 of them, they're going to be able to take care of any Marines that you have at this point in the game. And so basically what you want to do is build that bunker to house your Marines and to take most of the damage from the Stalkers while you're able to obviously shoot them from inside of it. Now here in this particular situation, this bunker is being very effective versus the Zealot push, so obviously it's going to do well against that as well. As you can see here, our factory is up, so at this point we are going to start building our 2 starports. So this is the basic build order we're looking at. 1 barracks into 1 factory into 2 starports. Now at this point we are moving out with our scout, trying to get some scouting information. And this is where we get that vital information that makes us do a slight deviation in our strategy. Seeing this Starport here, seeing this Stargate here, seeing that we are likely to be getting Void Rays, because that is the probable thing that will be coming out of a Stargate early in the game. Seeing that the Void Rays are likely to be coming, we're going to go ahead and start building some Vikings out of these Starports. That's going to be our response. That's going to be the decision that we make before we move into the Banshees. So Starports are up. Vikings are coming out right now. Of course, the Marines do very well versus Void Rays. People may say, well, why are you going to get Vikings if you have Marines? Yes, Marines do very well against Void Rays, but the issue is that Void Rays being air units, they can do a lot of harassment. They can move in, start picking off a building, do a ton of damage to it, and then pull back. And our Marines obviously cannot chase them into the air until they get jetpacks of some sort. That is not going to happen. So as you can see, Vikings just about to come out. As soon as they're done building, we do have these 2 tech labs, and basically what we did, we started building one tech lab on the factory. Once it finished, we lifted it off, started building the other tech lab, and that way, once the starports are done building, we can just drop them straight on the tech labs instead of waiting for that build time of putting them specifically on the starport. So we are doing that really interesting, really fun and cool building scouting by lifting off our factory. We really have no use for the factory after this point. We don't plan on building any siege tanks or anything anytime soon, so we're going to try to use it to get some scouting information. Now typically you are able to get a lot more scouting information than we are here. This factory is dropping incredibly fast though due to the void rays. Once they get fully ramped up to their 3rd level of ray attack, they do significant amount of damage to any buildings, so they were able to take them out pretty quickly. But I mean, there you go, our suspicions were confirmed. In seeing that Stargate, we thought the void rays would be coming, and in fact they were. So getting these Vikings was a good decision. We're going to be able to put them to good use here, taking out these void rays pretty handedly. As you saw, we are also getting additional barracks to increase our production of Marines. This is going to be very helpful to us, of course. We want to get as many Marines out as possible. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me specifically about attachments to Terran buildings, such as reactors and tech labs. Now, if you take a look here, the build time on this reactor is 50 seconds. Now, people ask me, well, if you're going for Marines, why are you not just building a reactor? Obviously, you're going to be able to get Marines out faster if you have a reactor. No one's going to argue that point. That's definitely the case. The problem is that if you're going for any sort of an early push like that, like we are doing here, spending those 50 seconds building a reactor is going to significantly cut back on the amount of units you have when you push out. I would say mid or late early to mid game is a good time to get that reactor, or if you don't plan on pushing out in the near future, you can go ahead and get that reactor, but spending the time to build that reactor is going to cut back on the amount of forces you have if you're going for this kind of early push here. So as you can see, we are pushing forward. We are, as always, creating support units, rally to outside of our opponent's base. We want to continue this pressure, so we want more backup units. And we're just going to be pushing forward and doing as much damage as possible. Moving forward with these Banshees, whenever they do get target fired, we pull them back to stop them from dying. Another neat little trick that you can do is use your Orbital Command and drop down a mule right on the battlefield, right where you're having your fight. Drop down a mule, put it on auto repair, and it can start repairing these Banshees, and you don't have to worry about them dying when they get to low health. That's a really cool little trick, definitely something that you'd like to use. I mean, obviously the sacrifice is that you're not going to be getting the minerals from the mule mining at your base, but having that repair on these expensive Banshees is also very beneficial as well. So it's just something to consider, something you can do. Obviously the other option would be to just bring some SCVs with you into battle to repair these units. Now, as you can see, coupled with the Marines and the Banshees doing that air-to-ground damage, significant damage to ground units, this was a lot for our Protoss player to handle, and we were able to take them out. So going back, taking a look at the build order, we started off with that 10 supply depot, followed it up with a 12 barracks. While the barracks was finished, once the barracks was finished building, we started building our Orbital Command. We also at that point started building our 2 refineries. Now, we saturate those refineries as soon as they're finished, and once we get our first 100 gas is when we go ahead and drop our factory. Now, we did move out, and after the factory was building, we got our 2 Stargates, our Starports. And when we moved out into our Protoss opponent's base, we did see those Stargates. So at that point, we decided instead of going straight for those Banshees, we're going to get a couple Vikings, we're going to deal with any void rays we might be seeing, and then we're going to move into our Banshees. Now, I do want to make a note too, we're not overreacting, we're not getting 14 Vikings because there might be 1 or 2 void rays on the field. We're just getting a couple. Once we see what he has for void rays, once we deal with the void rays that he sends at us, if we need more Vikings, we'll make more Vikings, but we're just going to get a couple to deal with anything we might see, and then we're moving into the Banshees. And then after that, once we get a pretty decent force, 3 to 4 Banshees, we're going to go ahead and push out with our Marines and our Banshees. And again, it's a very potent strike force. Very strong versus Protoss players. As you can see here, it worked very well. These are 2 really strong players, and this is a strategy that's being implemented by them. So yeah, definitely something I would try out as a Terran player versus Protoss opponents. So again, guys, this has been Force StarCraft 2 Strategy, your #1 location for step-by-step strategy and tutorial videos. If you guys like what we're doing here and you like what you see, please do go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Keep watching and keep owning, guys. Basically just picking off the buildings, getting to anything that we can that's outside of turret range. All the while we're going to be reinforcing, getting additional Banshees out. Also just going to be working on our economy. In fact, I do think we start building there we go. We start building an additional command center to prepare to expand, just in case this push doesn't work.